Following video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the final. I got them winning without.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Cali, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah, hey, can't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, bright lights, big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings, it's a beautiful thing out in Boston. And you ain't hard like that. You don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again to say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift, now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86, to the truth in 08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Till banner 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah. Can't nobody do it like Boston.
All right. Welcome into this episode of Dynasty Proud, brought to you by BSEN. As always, I am Ryan. I'm at 19_loading on Twitter. Alongside is Alex at AlexZachary305. And we're coming to you on this Wednesday. It's December 18th. And just last night was the conclusion of the NBA Cup, which we'll get into. We've got a whole bunch to talk about because, as happens to be the case, we haven't talked in 2 weeks again because our schedules have been so crazy that we haven't been able to do a podcast since December 3rd. But like I said, last time that happened, it just means we have even more to talk about. So, Alex, how you doing?
Doing well up here in balmy Massachusetts. Well, the good thing about because of this tournament is it could be 2 weeks, but we're only missing like 2 games in that time period due to, all the extended layoffs. So it actually kind of works out to this.
I think Alex froze.
I'm here.
Okay, there you go. Sorry.
I'm not sure if you caught what I said, but basically I'm glad that we have this long layoff. Well, since we have, layoff with our podcast, there's only a couple of games in between due to the in-season tournament scheduling. So it'd be nice to actually get back into more of a routine of there being games more often because it's nice, for the legs and for Porzingis that there's all this time off. But, even Al Horford, I think he said today, he's like, it's too much time at this point, like ready to get back to basketball tomorrow.
Yeah. And as we kind of talked about last time too, the Celtics were not involved at all, which was what we both wanted. So no extra games, no unnecessary risk. I know there's a lot of time off, but I think this was best case scenario because there's just no, there's really no reason for the Celtics to be competing for this thing because the ultimate goal is, to be raising a banner in June and not to have T-shirts that say 2024 champions, but then have the NBA Cup trophy on there like the Bucks had from last night, which I think is ridiculous. Like to have that say 2024 champions, like I just think that's stupid. I don't know what you can do to fix that, but like I thought that was dumb. I don't know if you had a thought on that. Did you even see those?
Yeah, I saw Dame wearing it, and then some people were joking like Dame's finally a champion. You saw Darvin Ham celebrating. He's now 2-0. Like if you want to take your team to the in-season cup tournament and raise that banner to the rafters, that's your guy. Hire him on, head coach, assistant coach.
Seriously,
whatever he's doing is working. But yeah, I mean it worked out great for us because we ended up getting Washington and then we got Detroit as the 2 games. Like our travel was Washington, which you can do, in like a hour flight from here. They didn't have to lose an additional game because they got crappy opponents. They didn't have to make the trip out to Vegas. They didn't have to play in the additional game, which is probably the last thing that we wanted for, Porzingis and any of the guys, especially since this year they've somehow been able to talk, Tatum into taking some more time off, which is great. So all the legs are rested right now, and we've been fortunate for the most part. We've had a pretty light schedule to start the season on top of the additional rest. So, gearing up now for more of the grind of the season. But yeah, I mean, 21-5, I'll take it at this point.
Yeah, and we don't have to talk too much about the NBA Cup because I know we talked about before we even got on. Neither one of us actually got a chance to watch it, or watch the whole thing at least. Like I was keeping track of it, but I wasn't actually, I wasn't glued to the screen, probably the way Adam Silver would want me to be. The Bucks
every time
pulled
you
off.
turned it on, someone's shooting free throws. So I was just like, all right, I'm
Well,
just
there's
gonna
that.
go back to my movie.
There's that, but then the other theme of the game outside of the Bucks ultimately winning and Darvin Ham remaining undefeated in the NBA Cup, the Thunder shot like they were you and me last night. So as a team, they were 5 for 32 from three and 29 of 86 from the floor. 33% from the floor overall, 15% on threes. So like the analytics folks in basketball would tell you they just didn't shoot enough. Because the reason that they lost would be in their minds, they stopped shooting. Because 32 threes in this day and age is not enough. The Celtics are shooting like 60. So I don't know if you have any
One thing
opposition
about the
to
Celtics is they're not going to have those numbers. Like, what did you say the stat was? What did they go from three?
5 of 32. They do that in a half.
The Celtics would rather go, like you said, 60. They'd rather go 5 of 55 than 5 of 32 because 5 of 32 means you just stopped trying. Like the Celtics in that scenario would have probably ended up 12 of 55. Like they would have taken all the additional threes. They would have probably kept missing them at a high clip because sometimes it's just not your night. But as we've seen, the Celtics can still find other ways to win. And I forgot who said it. That like everyone tries to copycat the Celtics in the 3-point game, but you don't have Tatum and Brown. Like they're not just 3-point shooters. Like they can do everything, but they're not just shooting threes. They're shooting threes. Like 4 seconds into the shot clock, just jacking it up. Like there's so much rotation. There's so much ball movement. Like they're passing up a good shot to get a really good shot to get a great shot. So yeah, they're not going to hit it all the time. Sometimes it's just not your night. Like Al Horford has some nights where he'll hit 5 of 7, and then he'll have other nights where he'll be 1 of 11, and 10 of them are wide open looks. Sometimes it's just not your night, but the Celtics can win in a multitude of ways. And from the little bit I watched, and I did watch some of the highlights of it, I took more away from Oklahoma City. Just like, again, the game doesn't count, but Oklahoma City to me feels like a team that, yes, they should definitely be taken seriously. They're a very talented team. You could argue they're the second most talented team in the NBA, but they feel like a team that's too young, that's got to earn their stripes first, that like maybe they get to the finals this year. Maybe it's the conference finals, but they feel like they'd be the easiest matchup out of anybody because of lack of experience. Like, even though Denver does not look good, a team like Denver, I don't want to say, well, I guess, Jimmy Butler ends up in Phoenix, but like a team that's more veteran oriented, even if they're not the best on paper, I would fear more in a finals series versus a team that's going to be youth and inexperienced. Like you can see it all over. You have to learn to lose before you learn to win. I thought Oklahoma City is a team that would get in there and be lucky to get gentlemen swept by us, even with all their talent. So I took more away from them that I don't think they're ready for that stage. Milwaukee, I know, we got to talk to Nathan again and see how he feels about them now because, they're back.
I think he's feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, I actually saw some of his posts. He does feel good. And like you said, even before the season, the Bucks might have the second highest ceiling in the East as far as ceiling for teams, but their floor is not that high. Things could corrode as they were doing at the beginning of the season. Like, I think they're, better positioned than Philly. Like, they're not going to completely fall off a cliff like that. But, like, if you tell me that the Bucks, take us to the Eastern Conference Finals and it goes 6 or 7 games, or that the Bucks go down in 5 in round 1 again, either one of those is believable. Like, the Celtics is not, So I think they're coming into their own. They're becoming more formidable. You have to see if Giannis stays healthy. You have to see if Dame stays healthy. Do they keep Bobby Portis? Are they even able to add on to the team? I don't think they have any draft picks. So we'll see what happens with them. But, when Giannis is clicking and Dame shows semblance of himself, that could be, the scariest team outside, as opponent to face potentially in the playoffs. Like, but still, I don't really buy into anybody causing us a threat if we're healthy or if we look like ourselves.
Yeah. And so specifically going back to the game from last night, and this is just me, again, kind of box score watching because I did not watch the game in full, but Milwaukee only scored 97 points, and the Thunder on defense are still as elite as it gets. Like, there's no question about that. But the problem in OKC, like you said, is I don't know if they truly have the experience and I know they're talented, but do they have that thing that gets them over the hump? Because statistically they're a top 10 team in points per game, but do they really have the firepower on offense to win in the playoffs? Like, I'm not sure that they do. And Shea's a great player. but his career high in points is 45 in a game, which is pretty low for what people make him out to be. And I know 45 points is nothing to sneeze at. I couldn't score 4 in a game. So, but in this day and age, guys are going for 60 in a game. So is he going to win you a game that way? I'm not so sure. And the Celtics, I think, have proven they can win those low scoring games, even though the Thunder are so good on defense. I don't really think the Thunder scare me as far as being a matchup for the Celtics. I just think I think the Celtics have somebody to counter everything that they can do. So
I think with a team like Oklahoma City, as great as Shai is, there's only one of him on that team. You look at Tatum, there's 2 of them basically. There's Tatum and there's Brown. On top of all the elite, like high level role players / sort of stars that we have. On top of that, like, yeah, you can double Tatum, but then you have single coverage or less on Brown, on Porzingis if he's out there, on Holiday, on White, on Pritchard, on Horford. Like, the Celtics just have way more weapons than Oklahoma City has. Yes, Oklahoma City is an elite defensive team. Offensively, they can go higher, low. Like, I understand they're missing Holmgren right now, but that team has constituted. They'll battle. I just feel like at the end of games, like you have like a big time shot maker in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but if you double team him, make somebody else beat you with that team. Whereas with the Celtics, I'm confident the others outside of Tatum can beat you. With Oklahoma City, it remains to be seen. So I think their youth and inexperience will hinder them. I think that's a team that really should be in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes if that actually comes to fruition, because he's not only going to add, another type of Shai. Like, he's not at Shai's level anymore, but it's another, big game player, scorer in the clutch, veteran, like someone that's not going to shrink in those moments. Like, that's the type of guy you need with them, and they have more picks than they can use. They're the team that makes the most sense. It just depends on if, they want to pull the trigger, and if he wants to go there, I guess, as an expiring player. But technically, he doesn't have a no trade clause, so if they throw the picks at Miami, why not? But I think they could use a veteran on that team, especially come playoff time, because I feel like there's just too much inexperience in that team, even for as talented as they are, once you get to a playoff series.
Yeah, and we can get into the Butler thing, like, if more comes of that at some point, we can definitely break down, destinations for him and what it's ultimately going to look like. But so because of the NBA Cup, there are no games tonight in the entire league, which kind of makes me mad. I like watching basketball, so that sucks.
Or football. So
well, there's some college football bowl games on tonight if you're into that, I think. But most people aren't. So the Celtics are back in action though tomorrow against the Bulls at 7:30, and so also going back to some of the recent games. I know it's been a while since we last spoke. They've gotten 2 wins against Detroit. They beat Milwaukee back on the 6th. They beat the Wizards just on Sunday, but they did lose to the Grizzlies in that Saturday game, who they kind of remain a pretty formidable threat in the West right now, which is they're much more competitive than I think anybody thought they'd be at the beginning of the year. John Morant was just a rebound and an assist shy of a triple-double. He had 32 points. Jaren Jackson had 27 and 9. Brandon Clark had 18. I might not have felt this way at the beginning of the year as far as Memphis goes, but this is not a team that I have a problem with the Celtics losing to. Like, they are surprisingly good. So I'm really not upset about that. Did you have any hard feelings about losing to Memphis at all?
No, because it's like last year when they played Milwaukee. It was the 5th game in 7 nights. Granted, that was on a back-to-back in a different city after an overtime game. So the legs were shot at that point. I think that they just didn't even show up to that game. This time it was at home. Not an overtime game against Milwaukee the night before. It was a very winnable game. They were ahead in the 4th quarter. Memphis is a formidable foe. And, to be honest, like, I would actually, not that I would fear any team, I would actually think they would be more of a challenge to us than in Oklahoma City if you actually got into a final series, just because there's more experience in that team. You have dogs like Marcus Smart. You have Desmond Bane. You have John Morant. Like, I think you have gritty type of players in that team and more veteran laden. So I feel like that team might give us more of a fight. But to your point, no, there's no shame in losing to Memphis. Like I said, we're not going to go 82-0. Second night of a back-to-back. We just beat Milwaukee. Human nature comes involved in that as well. it's, it is what it is. Like, you're going to have games, like, if there's bad losses, that's not one of them. Like, Atlanta at the time definitely felt like a bad loss, even though they have been a surprise this year. And, the further away you get from it, it looks less and less like a bad loss. Even the greatest teams are going to have games they shouldn't lose, but even still, no Trae Young. But like I said, that's like the Lakers game last year where, LeBron and AD didn't play, and they just showed up with Celtics in their jerseys thinking, okay, this is a cakewalk. And then you let Austin Reeves hit 6 threes, and it's just one of those nights. But yeah, there's no shame in the Memphis loss. With Chicago tomorrow, I know Porzingis is listed as questionable. Sam Hauser's listed as questionable. Porzingis, I mean, it's almost the second time he's kind of gotten hurt in the 7 games back. I would take it very easily. I know some people are like bubble wrap him until the playoffs, but I don't push him any more than he needs to go. Like, we don't need him for the game in Chicago tomorrow. If he really wants to play, okay, but like, it's just, I feel like he's a ticking time bomb, and it's just kind of pick your moments with him. And it's a lot of it's just bad luck, wrong place, wrong time, just landing the wrong way. It's just kind of been unfortunate in his whole career, but I don't think we need him to beat Chicago. So that's how I feel about it. What about you?
No, I would agree. The only other note I made about the Memphis game, if it's any consolation at all, I know they lost, but Marcus Smart tried everything he could to win the game for Boston because he was a -10. He was 1 of 11 from the floor, 1 of 6 from 3. He had 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists.
Well, that was
a rough night for him, but that was kind of a classic Marcus game. Like, he's one end of the spectrum or the other. And they got the bad one.
But Marcus Smart will go 2-11 from 3 and then hit the big 3 with 30 seconds left. So
yeah. Well, he won't. He certainly won't be afraid to shoot it. I don't know if he'll make it, but he will definitely shoot it.
That was one of the problems with the early Celtics teams with the Jays, is that in the big moments he was the one that wanted to shoot the most, and he was the least afraid. Whereas Tatum was almost more timid at the beginning, and Jalen, like, Marcus Smart wanted to shoot it. He's also the person who did not want to shoot it. And he would hit big shots, but for every one big shot he'd hit, he'd miss a whole bunch of them. So, yeah, no doubt. So, anyway, back to the Bulls, like we were talking about. They actually play them twice. They've got them tomorrow and then again on Saturday. The Bulls are they're in a weird place because there are rumors floating around. They're talking about trading just about everybody, with the exception of maybe Josh Giddey, who's been running the point a lot for them. He's been playing great, but he is hurt though with an ankle injury, and he's unlikely to play at least in this upcoming game tomorrow. Vucevic is having a great year. Levine is playing okay as well. Ayo Dosunmu has kind of finally broken out for them a little bit. He's turning into more what they thought he might be. Kobe White is obviously a really nice player. Lonzo Ball has been pretty underwhelming, but I don't know what you want from a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. But their record is actually better than I would think. They're 12-15, and with this roster and like the general mood around them, like the lack of chemistry and the way things are going around that team, like I think of them as being kind of in the basement, and they're not. And I guess maybe that's why they want to make some trades, because it doesn't really make sense to be this competitive when you have nothing going for you long term. But I think this should be 2 wins for the Celtics. That's just my opinion. I don't think you should walk out of here with anything less than that. It should be 2 wins, and I think Chicago is kind of stuck in NBA purgatory, which is where you don't want to be, which is where you're like between the 7 and 10 seed or just outside the play-in, where like there's no real path to them becoming contenders. It's not like they have like a young team and they're hovering around that. It's like it's more veteran laden. Like, you should piece out those players. Like, you've heard rumors about Vucevic, Ayo Dosunmu, who always seems to play well against us. Maybe you keep Kobe White. I gotta see what his contract looks like, but they get to identify, like, because DeRozan's already gone now, who the players are that you think can be part of your future. But like, there's no growth that's coming from this group internally. They're not one piece away from being a contender. Like, this team's going nowhere. So you would rather bottom out, maybe hit the luck in the lottery balls, getting Cooper Flag or someone at the top of the draft, than finish at the 10th seed and win one play-in game, lose the second, and then end up the 13th pick again. Like, that's not helping the team,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. They're in a weird place, and if I were an NBA GM, that's the last place I'd want to be. Like, I would not want to have a job like that where you have to make those type of decisions. Like, there's some decent players on this team, but it doesn't make sense to keep them. And like that, especially for a franchise like that, which has been honestly like really not very good since the mid 90s or the late 90s, whatever. Like, it's hard to have to tell your fans, like, we got to start over. But they kind of do. So, so coming up on the 23rd, also, the Orlando Magic. Since we last talked, they have now also lost Franz Wagner. So they are still somehow very competitive, though. Like, if you told me that a team of Jalen Suggs, Mo Wagner, Goga Bitadze, Anthony Black, and KCP and Jonathan Isaac would be a team that could stay above 500, like, I think you were out of your mind. But here they are. Like, they're still able to beat teams like Phoenix and Philly. The only thing with them, though, they're in a really tough stretch of their schedule right now, too, and it's a really bad time to be without your two best players. So they have recently played, and I know the record doesn't say they're any good, but Philadelphia, like, has talent and more talent than they do. Phoenix, Milwaukee, the Knicks, and then tomorrow night they've got OKC coming off the loss in the NBA Cup. So, and then after that they've got Miami and Boston. So whoever put that schedule together, like, I'd be ticked off. What are we doing playing all these teams?
It's brutal. And then I thought, honestly, before I moved up from Miami, when I was still down there, I was looking, okay, when do they play Orlando? Maybe I can go up to it. And then I looked at the schedule and I saw it's right before the Christmas game. I'm like, to me, that's schedule loss. That's Orlando, who always plays us tough. And that's right before the Christmas game where, like, the national TV, the big game against the Sixers, who are supposed to be good at the time. The players are honestly probably looking ahead to that. Orlando, like, for them, we're their Super Bowl or we're their championship. Like, to me, that felt like a loss. Now, like you said, they played above their heel, like, head over heels, like, above what the talent of the team should have, missing their two best players. But they play hard. So that's a team where if you just show up and you're like, I'm going to go through the motions, they have more talent than that Hawks team. So they'll beat you. But if you show up and you take them seriously, you should win that game. So that's how I feel about it. They should win that game. It just depends, are the Celtics resting a couple of guys because the Christmas game's coming up with national TV? They want to play everybody. If that's the case, okay, maybe that game becomes more in question. But if everyone plays and they take it seriously, that's the team you should beat.
I think there's a strong chance of what you just said, though, of resting guys, even if it's a fake injury, just so they can have the guys play on Christmas Day.
Like, Porzingis still won on Christmas Day as long as he doesn't get any further hurt, so he'll probably won't play in that game.
I wouldn't. I mean, I probably, if they're gonna rest him before that, I would just rest him all the way from now until then. Like, I wouldn't play him until Christmas Day. Just let that be his comeback. Like, that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I need a job like that where I get paid, $20-30 million, and I get to show up, once or twice, like, every 2 weeks. I should have been born 7'3".
That would be nice. It's that or be
or the king of PTO, Embiid.
Well, yeah, we can talk about them in a second, but it's either be born 7'3" or be a starting pitcher in the MLB, get paid $20 million a year, just be okay and work once every 5 days. Like, that sounds pretty good. I'd take that.
Or be Juan Soto.
Well, yeah, that's anyway. So 76ers, Christmas Day, they are atrocious. Joel Embiid barely plays. Tyrese Maxey is their only guy who is, like, even approaching elite. Paul George is still good, but is not what I would call a winning player. Jared McCain is now out with a knee injury, and he was just about the only other good thing they had going for them. And I legitimately think if the NBA had the chance and if this was an option, they would flex this like an NFL game to a different day and put someone else in on Christmas Day, because I don't know who's going to want to watch this if Embiid and McCain are both out. Like, I want to watch because I'm a Celtics fan, but is anybody else out there going to watch when the 8-16 Philadelphia 76ers are going up against the best team in the league?
And not only that, it's I've always thought of Christmas as an NBA day, even with there being NFL games now. But that being prime time, the 5 p.m. game, but the main game, and there being a 4:30 NFL game, like, that feels like one that's gonna get missed by a lot of people due to the nature. Like, because when they're putting that together, they probably think, okay, this is the defending champs, and maybe the second best team in the East, maybe the third, depending on how you view the Knicks. But, like, they're the ascending team. That might be Boston's. This might be the best Sixers team, and now they're complete dog shit. And B's not taking it seriously. He's always hurt. McCain's hurt now. Paul George is, never available either. So it's like, Tyrese Maxey's show. And, hopefully that's not another one of those games where the Celtics look at it like, the Atlanta game this year or the LA game last year, where it's like, well, nobody's playing. We can just go through the motions and jack up, 63s and not really play defense. And then, you're in a dogfight. So then even if we win that game, you're like, everyone will be like, oh, dogfight with the Sixers missing everybody. But I think ultimately they will win that game. They'll probably win it handily. Like, it doesn't matter who's in the court. They always seem to play well on Christmas, and they take it seriously. But not having the stars on the other side is kind of, it sucks for the casual fan. And even for us, like, I want to see us play them at full strength, and that's hardly what they'll be.
Yeah, it's a shame because the Sixers, so as I said, they're 8-16. They're 29th in points per game. They are 10th in points allowed per game, but that's probably because teams can take their foot off the gas at the end of games because they're not competitive. And as far as Maxey goes, I know you mentioned him a couple seconds ago. I'm not that mad because I've got him on my fantasy team, and that's looking great right now because nobody else ever plays. So he was a steal, even though I accidentally auto-drafted my team, but we don't have to talk about that. So, and I know we talked a little bit about Kristaps too. He is kind of dealing with this heel thing. He says apparently that it's unrelated to prior injuries and it's a new thing. And he's like day to day. How much does this worry you?
I mean, anything with Porzingis worries me. Thankfully for us, we know we can win a championship mostly without him, but you see the difference he makes when he's out there. He's like, you just throw it to him at the top of the key and it just opens everything up for you. Plus having that rim protector, it's more than a rim protector, it's like a rim deterrent. Like, people aren't going to go down there when he's down there, particularly guards, which is where he really makes a difference. Like, he's not going to body up and beat or Giannis when they're over there. But, like, smaller players driving the lane where you have the guy that looks, at the car dealerships with, like, the waving arms. Like, that's kind of what he's like down there, He's going to deflect shots. Even on a fast break, he can block shots. So I would be extremely, extremely cautious with him. You don't need him for the regular season. I mean, you're not going to just sit him the whole regular season. But, like, you just need to avoid serious injury. And obviously, it's just luck. A lot of times, like, we were very, very careful with him last year as much as we could be, especially winning the conference by so many games, whereas the last month of the year, we were just kind of taking turns resting guys, getting everybody ready, and then 4 games into the playoffs, he's already hurt again. So a lot of times it's luck. When you're that size and you have the injury history, it just happens. But, with Porzingis, yeah, I am a little worried, of course, but we don't need him every single day. He's not, as long as it's not like an Achilles tear, ACL, anything like that. Like, anything else, bumps, bruises, rest him as much as you can because we don't need him right now.
Yeah. And I mean, I said before the season, like, I really don't even need to see him until like after the All-Star break. Like, I don't see the reason to risk it. I know, you need to keep him warm. He needs to play basketball. I get that. He's going to get rusty if he doesn't play. And if he's theoretically good to go, why wouldn't you put him out there? But I hate the idea of not having him because he is so good. Like you said, I know they don't necessarily need him to win the whole thing, but man, it makes it a lot easier. Like, they run through teams when they've got him. And they kind of do that anyway, but it's such an advantage to have that player. So, like,
it creates more of a margin for error when he's out there.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly cannot see, if he's out there, assuming the Jays are healthy, if he's out there, I honestly can't see a scenario that we don't win the championship. I know that sounds like homerish, but I think they're so much better than everybody when we have our full team that if Porzingis is out there and he's like mostly okay, like, he doesn't have to be 100% because I don't think he'll ever really be 100%, but like, if he's not laboring and he can play mostly at his level and the Jays aren't hurt, I don't see a scenario where we don't win the championship. I just can't see it. Where if he's not out there, or it's like last year where he's out there and then he's out for several games and then he comes back, like, yeah, your margin for error shrinks dynamically. And then, you get an injury to somebody else and it really opens up a pathway. So it's baby him as much as you can. It just, for however long Porzingis is in a Boston uniform, that's what you have to do. He's, unfortunately for us, he's really the only injury prone player that we have, but he's a pretty big one. So physically, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. And even just on the defensive end, like you mentioned, he helps so much because, and as we'll talk about in a minute, he helps a guy like Payton Pritchard, who, like, he might get abused on defense otherwise, but if Porzingis is out there, he's roaming the paint, and there's that deterrent about going in to the rim, and Pritchard can just play hard and be right in somebody's face and not worry about getting beat off the dribble, it's immensely helpful. So now it is time for the Payton Pritchard Love Fest, which we have neglected to do on past podcasts. We actually, after the show last time we did the podcast, you said to me, dude, we completely forgot to talk about Payton Pritchard. And you're 100% right, because we've talked about him a little bit on some prior shows, and we've already mentioned that he's in the driver's seat to be the sixth man of the year. But this is the question that I want to hit you with. Does he deserve consideration, not just for the sixth man, but also for the most improved award this year?
I think he should get it. I mean, who's his competition right now? That's something I probably should have looked at prior to the show. But I mean, if you look at like the level, not just his numbers, but his impact on games. Like when he shoot, like I remember before, like you'd watch him play, come out, hit a two threes, maybe in three. It was like, oh wow, look at Pritchard hitting shots. Now it's like every time he shoots the ball, you expect it to go in, and he's hitting deep threes. He's hitting logo threes. He's like Steph Curry out there. Actually, to that matter, he has more threes than Steph Curry. I think he's leading the NBA in threes. I think he's the fastest Celtic to 100 threes. And at this pace, not only is he going to set the record for most threes in a season by a Celtic, he's going to blow it away. And this is somebody that comes off the bench. And I think Pritchard, two things. Brad gave him that contract last year, which is crazy because he was asking for a trade. Like, he just was not happy about his role. It wasn't like he didn't like Boston, didn't like the Celtics. He wanted more of a role. Clearly had the talent to do it. And the way he's come into his own, the way his confidence out there, like he's fearless in these moments, it almost creates a scenario where if the Celtics, and I don't want this to happen, for the next couple of years, but if the Celtics want to lighten that tax bill, let's say, I don't know, I think if they go back to back, they're going to keep the team together as long as they can, 3-peat, 4-peat, however long it goes. But if they want to lighten the tax bill and they want to move off one of their guards, which in that case it'd be like Drew Holiday, I think Payton Pritchard could run the point, could be the starting point guard. Yes, he's going to have height deficiency. I mean, he can't do anything about that, but he plays hard, He almost kind of has a little bit of that Isaiah Thomas to him, where, like that swagger, where like his shooting, his scoring ability, like the height doesn't stop him. I mean, and granted, he's taller than Isaiah Thomas. I don't know if he's actually the 6'1" that they list him at, but he's a dog. He's a dog out there, and he's not the defensive liability that you would naturally think he is. Like, yeah, he's 6'1". Realistically, he's probably 5'11", but he's not gonna, like, he doesn't take it from anybody, when he's playing defense. Like, he's, he plays strong defense as much as he physically can. And like you said, having, guys like Porzingis and all, 4 all-world defenders around him when he's on the floor helps a lot as well. But you can't just, like, pick on him like you can for a lot of other players. Like, look at last year in the finals. Every time they'd switch on to Kyrie onto one of the Jays, they would just abuse him. Like, whereas Kyrie, is a few inches taller. He should have more of an advantage. Kyrie's is just due to lack of effort. Same things you can say with like Dame sometimes. Like, that's not the case with Pritchard. So Pritchard, what a contract by Brad. I remember when he first signed it, everyone's like, holy overpay. He's getting $7 million a year. Like, if Payton Pritchard was going to be a free agent this offseason, he's getting 15 to 18 million easily. Maybe he's getting 20 million from a desperate team. Like, how many teams he's starting on point guard? Like, he's probably starting for at least half the teams in this league, if not like 20 teams. Like, he's really elevated himself to that level.
I think so. He's been electric. There's no other way to say it. Like, he's putting up numbers that he never got a chance to hit in past seasons. And you mentioned the 3-point record for the team. There was a stat that Sean Grandy put out earlier that
that's right,
the Celtics have 3 guys on pace to break that record. It's Tatum, Pritchard, and Derek White, I think. Correct me if I have that wrong.
I believe that's the 3, yeah.
So so Pritchard is 12th in 3-point attempts per game in the entire league, and he doesn't start. That is insane to me. Like, that is wild. He's legitimately like a very good player. And the thing that has always impressed me the most about him, and my dad and I used to joke about this a lot, he protects the ball so well. Like, he doesn't have super long arms. He's not a guy that you would look at as being like an elite ball handler. And he doesn't like, he's got great moves, and he does a really good job of getting himself open. He's an excellent shot creator, but he's not like, he's not in the class of like a Kyrie as a ball handler. But you would think it would be like tough to keep the ball so well protected against some of these bigger guards because everybody's so much bigger than him. But he does an excellent job of just like keeping that arm in front where nobody can get the ball away from him.
Or when he's finishing at the rim, the way he's able to put his body into people so he can get a shot off. And like I feel like I can't remember the last time I saw his shot get blocked. And he's down in the paint with all these big bodies around him. He just like he'll throw a little muscle into somebody or lean into them to get the shot off, just so they can't reach out to block it. So he's a very like high IQ player as well.
And he's only got about 190 pounds to throw around, so who knows how effective that is. But he's also smart enough to know, like, okay, I see when I have a window and when I don't. You know what I mean? Because he's not going to, like you said, he doesn't get blocked. It doesn't happen. He's not going to take that risk because he's got so many guys around him that he can dish to. He's like, why would I take that risk? That doesn't make any sense. The one thing I do wonder if I'm going to play the negative role, which I have a tendency to do sometimes on this show, if you dropped him on a bad team, like New Orleans, like they've got absolutely nobody else. He's basically the number one guy. Like, is he still this good? Like, if he has to start, if he gets all the attention from a defense, does he put up these numbers? I would say, as far as the efficiency goes, at least, I would say no. He might score more points. His numbers might appear better, but I think he would be way less efficient. And I do think that if he's on a team that's not as good, he would get taken advantage of on the defensive end way more than he does right now. But that's the only negative thing about him. And none of that really matters because he is on the Celtics. So it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
It's an embarrassment of riches what we have on this team. Like, outside of our starting five, which is by far the best starting five in the NBA. You have Al Horford off the bench, who's still, the way he still plays at such a high level, like the way he can shoot, the way he defends, the high IQ player he is. You have Sam Hauser, who might be the best pure shooter on the team and one of the best in the entire league, is your eighth man. Like, then not to mention what Pritchard's doing, the fact that we cut Lonnie Walker. I mean, granted, that's a different scenario, like a different conversation. I mean, that would have been even crazier if we still had him, but I think that actually would have taken away from Pritchard a lot. Pritchard is basically turned into all we could have hoped for Lonnie Walker and better. So it's just, and then you can interchange at the bigs with with Cornette, with Neemias Queta, with Tillman, but it's just when they had Peterson come in and hit a few threes against Cleveland, like it's just crazy the amount of talent that is on this team. It's insane.
It's wild. And I guess that gets us to the last thing that we were going to talk about, which just was like overall expectations for the season. Have they changed at all? Have your goals for the team changed? Has your outlook on the season taken any kind of a hit? Is there anything that you're worried about? Like, just generally, what's the temperature right now? How you feeling?
It's just crazy. Just go back to my last statement when I'm talking about the embarrassment of riches and the amount of talent we have on this team, where you think about the other team in Boston, the Patriots, and just the lack of talent, where they're a 63-man roster and they have 2 NFL quality players on their team, and they want to fire the coach. Like, you look at that, and then you look at where the Celtics are. It's just a crazy dichotomy. But I mean, it's championship. There's no excuse to not win a championship. If Tatum and Brown run into each other, knock on wood, and they're both out for a long duration of time, like I literally think you could play the main Red Claws or whatever the main Celtics now, have them play every other game. The Celtics could end up in the 4th or 5th seed and they're still come out of the East. Like, I just think they're that much better than everybody. It almost doesn't matter if the games are home or away. And if you look at the standings right now, the Celtics would have to go on a forget the other teams actually playing to the level of catching up to the 1 or the 2 seed. The Celtics would have to go on a substantial losing streak that they just don't go on. So they're guaranteed to be in the top 2, barring something completely unforeseen. So that means they're going to have home court in any series except against Cleveland, if Cleveland even lasts long enough to face them, which would be the conference finals, which, yeah, Cleveland looks good this year, but Cleveland's going to have to win 2 series, particularly the second one, which may be against the Milwaukee or Knicks or a team like that. So who knows if we even get to see Cleveland in a playoff series. But I'll take the Celtics home or away in any series. So I guess you could say the West, not to bring this up again, but what happens at the deadline? Does Jimmy Butler go to one of the top teams in the West? Does he go to a Golden State? Does he go to I mean, I don't think you'd go to Denver, but like Denver, Dallas, Phoenix, like adding another piece to a team to make them closer to our level. But I think it's championship or bust. That's just what it is. So I think you approach it that way too. Like as a fan, I love getting to watch them play, and it's much less stressful. Like, yeah, you're in the game, you want them to win, of course, and you get mad when things don't happen the way you want it to, but they won the championship. Like, I don't take losses the same way anymore. Like, I was out for the Memphis game, and I had it on, and I'm watching it as they're losing, and I'm just like, oh, whatever. You know, I'll just watch the college football game right now. I'm having my drinks. Like, it is what it is. Like, the losses used to bother me so much more because the comment sections and Twitter and everything after every single loss last year, even as good as they were over the last few years, is like, oh, typical Celtics chokers, second-round exit, first-round exit, even though that stuff never happened. Like, now you don't even get those comments. And if you do, it's like a one-off from, like, some loser on Twitter where it's like, okay, like, your team's the frigging Nets. Like, how are you even talking, you know? So it's just a great time to be a Celtics fan. Like, everyone just assumes we're going to win it again. And if they don't, it's just out of hate and despise for the Celtics as opposed to any logical reason where they wouldn't. So it's fun being a Celtics fan right now. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, so my prediction about a month ago was that the Celtics would overtake the number 1 seed in the East over the Cavs by Christmas. That was what I said. Not looking like they're going to do that. Probably.
What is it? One game back right now with like
so
a week till
Cleveland. I just had it pulled up, so let me pull it back up. But hang on 1 second. So Cleveland is sitting at 23-4. And the Celtics are at 21-5 right now. So yeah, right. So they're a game and a half back right now, unless Cleveland, loses a couple games over the next couple days, and the Celtics
who does Cleveland play?
I can find that out. Cleveland has got, actually, it's very possible. Let's see. Well, no, probably not actually. Well, so they played Bucks on Friday. That's a losable game. Sixers, they'll crush. Jazz, they'll beat. Those are the only games.
That looked tougher at the start of the year with the Sixers. Yeah. And the Jazz, you didn't think would be this bad, but
no, the Jazz are in rough shape.
I mean, if Danny Ainge wants to take a pick and Jaden Springer for Walker Kessler, and just kind of finish the dynasty here and keep it going forward.
But you never know. He might do that.
He loves those draft picks. Like that don't matter at all to us. Throw him Baylor Shireman, Jaden Springer, and
Drew Peterson.
One first and like a conditional swap or something for Walker Kessler, and then there's your KP replacement in 2 years. So
yeah. So anyway, probably not going to overtake the 1 seed by next Wednesday, but they are a lot closer than they were. So it's looking pretty good. So I think we hit on everything. So I feel like we can call it a day as Tatum jumps in front of the camera there.
Tatum, you got anything to add?
What's up, bud? All right. Well, so I think we're good. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Celtics are back tomorrow, 7:30 against the Bulls. Tune in for that on League Pass and NBC Sports Boston. And we'll be back to talk about all these upcoming games that we just talked about and everything else that's going on with the team, any storylines that happen to pop up over the next week or so. We'll do all that next time we're on. And we appreciate you all for listening, and we will catch y'all later.
Ends tonight here. It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.